I'm going to invite the keynote speaker of today. This is Paul Cuthbert. He is General Manager Mine BHP in Australia. After 7 years in Canada, working in senior roles on BHP's potash project and as a General Manager of Hecate Diamonds, Paul recently returned home to Australia to become the General Manager of the Olympic Dam mine. Paul is originally from Western Australia, where he studied a Bachelor of Engineering, Mining and Mineral Engineering at Curtin University and worked with Newcrest, Newmont and Normandy before joining BHP. This is not the first time Paul has worked at Olympic Dam, having had numerous management roles between 2006 and 2011. Paul, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jacques.
As the world moves to cleaner, more sustainable transport, we're going to need more copper. Because even an electric car needs 4 times as much copper as a standard car. So some might be surprised to know it's actually copper mines like Olympic Dam in South Australia that are helping build a cleaner world. Think big.
So good morning, everyone. So you might be wondering what this fine vegetable of a moustache is about. I'm actually supporting Movember this year, so quite gladly I will take donations. So if you get onto the Movember website, I'm raising money for mental health. One of my close friends took his own life earlier in July this year, so it's very close, near and dear to my heart. So feel free to jump onto the Movember website and dig deep. It's for an absolute fantastic cause relative to men's health. So, as Jacques says, my name's Paul Cuthbert. I'm a General Manager for the mine up at Olympic Dam. So I'm quite actually excited to be here today and share some of what we're doing at Olympic Dam here in South Australia, but also to talk more broadly about BHP. Firstly, I want to start by recognising that we stand on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people. We respect their cultural heritage, their spiritual beliefs, and sacred relationship with this land. I'd also like to recognise the traditional owners of Olympic Dam, the Cuthbert people. I pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. So whilst many of you may be familiar with BHP locally, I'm actually very cognizant that we have a global audience, so I want to provide a brief overview of our global operations. So BHP is among the world's top producers of major commodities, specifically in iron ore, in metallurgical coal and in copper. And we also have significant interests in oil and gas as well as in energy coal. So we aspire to have the best assets across the best commodities with the best culture and capabilities. Just one of these elements alone is not enough. It's the combination of transformation, capital discipline and social value that sets us apart, and we truly believe that gives us a competitive advantage. So the newest addition to this slide is BHP's updated purpose statement. Quite simply said, to bring people and resources together to build a better world. So to me, that statement I think is quite simple, but quite powerful as well, because it speaks directly to what we do, but also why we do it. So I spoke before about global reach. So if you look at this slide, it actually depicts where across the globe our operations and our offices are. You can't see many dots in Australia, I'm afraid, but I'll get to that in a minute. So we form part of Minerals Australia. We're also part of BHP's copper portfolio, which includes Escondida, the world's largest copper mine, which is located in Chile. So you can see where our other operations are. As Jacques said, prior to coming here, I was lucky enough to spend the last 5 years in the middle of Canada, leading our potash shaft sinking project there and actually learning a lot from the Canadians culturally and particularly about how to deal with weather a lot colder than here. Last year, the company's total global economic contribution was more than $46 billion US. We have around 72,000 employees and contractors around the globe, supporting local businesses and suppliers, and paying wages, taxes and royalties is also part of our social contract. So a little bit closer to home, this is our Australian footprint. So you can see there Olympic Dam in South Australia. It's about 500 kilometres north-ish of Adelaide. Laura Tyler is our asset president, and those other notations on the map there show where our other operations around the country are, and the leaders of those, whether they be iron ore and nickel in Western Australia or coal throughout Queensland and in New South Wales. So you might wonder where Olympic Dam gets its name from. Like most ore bodies, I guess it's linked to the original exploration drilling. So the Olympic Dam itself is a pastoral dam that was constructed in 1956, i.e. the year of the Olympics, in Melbourne. And where the first drill hole that intersected the ore body was adjacent to that dam. So that's actually where it gets its name. So last year we celebrated 30 years of production at Olympic Dam, and we were part of the acquisition from Western Mining back in 2005. So today we have a workforce that's 4,000 strong. So these are people that either work in Adelaide or up at site at Roxby Downs. But I mean, that paints only part of the picture. So last year we had 11,000 people come through our gates on site. So that shows the level of indirect and direct benefit of Olympic Dam to this region. So our workforce basically is either from Roxby Down, the locals, or from the Upper Spencer Gulf and drive in, drive out, or surrounds of there, or here in Adelaide or surrounds, and we fly in, fly out. So I guess we have quite a diverse pool from which we draw. So last year, we welcomed 360 new starters to the team. Right now, we are cultivating the first trade of around 70 apprentices, and we're also helping 40 others develop their second trade with the remainder of our workforce. So as well as being one of the largest employees in South Australia, we also contribute around about a third of South Australia's resource and energy royalties. So right now, we are progressing our studies for our growth strategy. So what we call the Olympic Dam Resource Development Strategy, which the Minister declared as a major development in February of this year. So to us, this was an important legislative milestone for the project, which will help us build a platform for sustainable future growth in South Australia. So right now our team is studying a phased pathway for sustainable and staged growth. A key part of this is what we term our Brownfields Expansion Project, which we call BFX. If this is approved by our board, it would modernise and upgrade our surface operations and enable us to increase extraction from the southern mine area. So right now, we produce in the order of around about 200,000 tonne per annum of copper. With BFX, we're seeking to look to grow that to somewhere between 240 and 300,000. So now I'm going to shift into the mine. So near and dear to my heart, having previously been the underground production manager here for quite a while. So Olympic Dam is one of the largest underground mines on the planet, particularly if you consider this specific mining method we utilise, and I'll get to what that is in a moment. But it contains one of the largest, resources at 10.4 billion tonnes, fourth largest by copper, largest uranium resource, and significant quantities of gold and silver. So it is a polymetallic ore body. In terms of trying to explain the size of the mine, it's hard to do in words, so we try to do it in pictures. So this is the Adelaide, and right underneath the word Adelaide is the CBD. So it just gives you, so next time when you walk outside and have a look, it seeks to give you a sense of scale of what the underground operations will get to. So at the moment we have around about 700 kilometres of underground development. So quite large. And yes, if I was driving I would get lost. So the picture on the right, and I know this is a very busy slide, but the picture on the top right is a plan view showing our ore body. So historically we've mined what we call the Northern Mining Area, or the NMA. So that's the piece that's represented in the brown, if you like. So there's actually a fault called Mash's Fault that diagonally crosses that square from the bottom left to the top right. So to the left of that is basically the Northern Mine Area. As we're expanding right now, I mean, we're doing record development metres around about 36 k's a year underground. We're pushing that into the Southern Mine Area, and that's where we get our growth pathway from. So the picture at the bottom left is a long section of that. So it just shows again, you know, what we've historically mined over the course of the last 30 years, and what we're shifting towards. So all those coloured boxes, if you like, are what we call stopes. So that's where the ore is going to be sourced from over the course of the next 30 years plus. And you can see there it's essentially an extension of the existing ore body, and part of it is beneath the Northern Mine Area. So we actually think of this like the easiest way to describe it is like a frying pan. So the Northern Mine Area is the handle, and the Southern Mine Area is the pan itself. So the type of mining that we do is, for those mining buffs like me, is sub-level open stoping. And quite simply put, it's really about us putting accesses into the ore body through what we call development. So that picture on the top right is a picture of a jumbo interface. So we cut tunnels to access the ore body, and then we seek to create large voids, which we call stopes. Now these are typically the size of the inner city building here. And then we extract those one at a time, we fill the hole and we start alongside. So the picture in the middle on the slide there is about blasting, you know, how we break the rock, and then we move it with trucks and loaders to a centralised point, which we feed a train, which is quite unique in Australia in an underground context, that take the ore to a crusher, we bring it up a shaft, which we call the Clark shaft, and then it comes to the surface. Lots of detail. Basically, we have 500 people every day underground, every shift. You know, and in terms of scale, that puts it around about 50 trucks running around underground with about 100 other pieces of big gear, as well as a couple of hundred light vehicles. So it is a substantive underground operation in its own right. So ventilation for us, in the context of this conference, plays a key part in minimising exposure of radiation to our people. And we have what we believe is the most expansive ventilation network in an underground mine, and more than 5,000 cubic metres per second, which is generally just a lot. So now I'm going to shift into the surface, and I'm going to be clear that I'm not an expert by any stretch. So I'm sure if there's questions, just ask Zoe, who's sitting down here on the left. So what do we do with the ore once it comes to the surface? So hopefully you can read that. Basically, the ore when it comes up is around about 2.5% copper. We seek to refine that to 99.999% copper, and it's basically a 5-stage process. So this is unique in the context of what the local competitors do. So normally people around South Australia produce a concentrate, ship a concentrate off to others to shift it into final product, but we do the whole lot from end to end here at Olympic Dam. So the ore goes through a concentrator process, goes through the hydromet, goes through a solvent extraction process, smelting and refining. And I'll get to those things in a little bit later. So this is a simplified version of the chemistry set, which is what we call our process flow sheet. I'm going to attempt, and I'll say attempt, to walk you through the processes. And like I said, I'll dob Zoe in again. If there's any really detailed questions, feel free to ask, Zoe. So if I start at the top, so really we have what I would call a typical copper concentrator. So grinding, flotation, leaching. The output of that is a copper concentrate. We then put that through dewatering, we dry it, then we put it through a couple of different smelters. So we smelt it, an electric furnace and an anode furnace. So what we're doing essentially is converting that ore concentrate, the copper concentrate, into molten copper. We take out impurities as slag, and then we pour what we call copper anodes, which are 360 kilo slabs of copper, which is around about, I think it's 91 or 92% copper. So not refined yet. So from there, we put it through an electro-refining process, which takes it from that just over 90 to 99.999%, and which is pure refined copper, which we call olidar, and actually captures a market premium. So the slimes, or the remaining product from the electro-refining process, contains the gold and the silver, and then they go into their own extraction processes to end up with gold bars and silver ingots. So that's the top line. The bottom line is our secondary production circuit. So one of the things that we do as part of reducing our emissions from the smelter is capture the sulfur dioxide. So that we turn into sulfuric acid, which then we use to leach the tailings or the underflow from our flotation circuit. And then by doing that, we liberate the remaining 6% of copper as well as the uranium. It goes into a solvent. So then in that solution, we put through solvent extraction, and then the copper stream, if you like, goes to electrowinning, comes out as copper cathode, and then uranium gets into precipitation and calcification, if I've said that right, and then ends up as uranium oxide or yellow coke. So that's what I would call the simplified version of that flow sheet. So our final products, you can see there's the olidar, or the copper cathode, on the top left, the drums of uranium oxide, and our gold and silver. So our copper heads off to markets in China, in Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand. Our gold and silver go directly to the Perth Mint, whilst our uranium goes to customers in countries, predominantly in Europe and in Japan, that have bilateral agreements. So if you were to open up our BHP website, you would come to what we call our charter values. Sustainability is one of those, and first and foremost for us. So this covers the safety of our people, our environment, and the community. So first and foremost for us is to eliminate fatalities, so our people go home safe each and every day. So this diagram seeks to share how we think about eliminating fatalities. So first is through operating controls and management. Secondly is to set the benchmark for the industry around safety standards and culture. And finally, through initiatives such as process safety, how we work with our contracting partners, and how we reduce our workforce's exposure to things such as damaging energies, through how we design and how we control our work. So process safety and risk management are critical for us. Now Zoe and Neil are going to share how we think through that in more detail in the next section, in the breakout session. So I would encourage you to attend, and hopefully you can leverage some learnings from what we are seeking to do in this space. So environment is obviously another key piece of our commitment to sustainability. So the majority of the water we use at Olympic Dam is sourced from the Great Artesian Basin, or the GAB as it's colloquially known here locally. So the GAB is the largest groundwater basin in the country. You know, it covers a land area of around about 1.7 million kilometres and is spread across multiple states. So without access to this water source, Olympic Dam can't operate, and nor can we provide water to the towns of Andamuka and Roxby Downs. So the Gab itself is unique because of its naturally occurring springs, or the mound springs. These springs support unique ecosystems of flora and fauna, and they are also culturally important to Aboriginal people. So water stewardship is essential for our operation and to long-term environmental sustainability. And as you would expect, we have a robust environmental management plan in place, which includes both monitoring of and limiting our impact. You know, we are also continually seeking ways to reduce our level of water consumption. So social investment, community partnerships and advocacy are also important. Not less than 1% of BHP's pre-tax profits are invested in programs that contribute to improved quality of life in our host communities. So last year this showed up as US $93.5 million, which was a voluntary social investment, which is up more than $16 million on the year before. So as part of our social value and reconciliation action plan commitments, we also publicly endorsed the Uluru Statement from the Heart earlier this year, which calls for a greater voice and constitutional recognition for Indigenous Australians. So in South Australia itself, we have a number of important long-term partnerships linked to our values, particularly around sustainability, diversity, inclusion. The photo that you actually see here is of the Taranthi Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Contemporary Arts Festival with the Gallery of South Australia. So this is a partnership which has been going, you know, for around about 2.5 years. So we're halfway through a $17 million partnership with the university, which has seen around 4,000 Indigenous artists from the Tiwi Islands to the Coorong exhibit their work. Now, part of this festival is an annual art fair, which has generated more than $3 million in sales, with all proceeds going directly to the artists or their art centres. So Taranthi has generated around about $63 million since its inception in economic activity, which is incredible social value, not just for Adelaide, but in general for Aboriginal artists around the country. So right now, I'm not sure whether you realise, but this festival is on. I was there a couple of weeks ago, and if you were to come into my dining room, you would see a pride of place above my dining table, a fantastic piece of art I got from the APY lands in support of the fantastic work they do. So it is, just get on your phone and have a bit of a look, because you'll certainly find it. There's lots of exhibitions around the city whilst you're here. So BHP is thinking about our people, our work, our relationships, and our contribution to society in a different, bigger way, hence think big. If there is a phrase that gets to the heart of the evolution of our thinking, it's to shift from licence to value. So we are awarded the right to develop natural resources like Olympic Dam. So it's important that we shape the future to create prosperity for shareholders and our communities in society. When we invest in a region, we become an intrinsic part of the community for decades, just like what's happened at Olympic Dam in the development which Western Mining originally did of the community of Roxby Downs. So we are moving from a position of maintaining a social licence to creating social value, moving from tolerance and acceptance to trust and partnership. So we just don't want to be tolerated, we want to be welcomed and a partner of choice. So we are part of a value-creating ecosystem. We operate as part of the local community. We work closely with government, NGOs, suppliers and investors. Our business decisions have the potential to profoundly impact those around us. In that sense, financial value and social value are part of the same equation. One cannot exist without the other. If we do not do this well, there will be an impact to our business. What is considered going today above and beyond will be the benchmark or the base requirement in the future. So this last slide, to me, resonates a lot. So back in 2006, when I was production manager at Olympic Dam, the gentleman in this picture, his name is Andy Werfel. He was a jump operator underground, so one of our underground crew. So those two ladies that are with him are his daughters. So both of them, Hannah and Renee, have worked with us. One of them still does. The other one says, well, I love this mining. I'm going to go off, and we're helping her get through university studying mining. But they're, part of our growing female workforce underground at Olympic Dam. And to me, this speaks volumes of a multi-generational mine. It was great coming back and seeing the kids of the parents that were there before. And this is just one example. I don't have to go to the tag board and I look at the names and the surnames on the board, and I can see a lot of kids there, which is fantastic. So, like I said, look, Hannah and Renee form part of our ever-growing women underground. Right now we're just around 20% of female participation. We do have an aspiration by 2025 to get to gender balance, so around 50%. So we've got a ways to go, but simply this is the right thing to do. So for me, this really rings true, having a son and two daughters. So I want to make sure that we provide the opportunities for anyone in a diverse context. So we're proud of our ambitious targets, and we will continue to think big about the future at BHP so we can be ready for the next generation. I think about this, we've been here for the first 30 years and we're creating the space for the next 30. And that's all I have, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul, for your very informative presentation. It's quite impressive. And maybe there are some, I hope so, there are some questions. Yes.
Any questions?
Yes,
Sorry.
please.
And remember, I'll preface my answers with I'm a mining engineer by background, so I'm quite happy to speak about it in that context, but anything else I'll throw to the crowd. No, I can't hear you, buddy. No.
Speak. You can speak.
Just speak up.
I'll
No,
repeat the question.
on with the microphone.
It is speaking? Right.
Yeah, great.
Could you comment, please, on the possibility of using nuclear power to provide electricity and desalinated water to the mine?
So currently, we grab our power from the network like anyone else off the grid, and we're not in the business of generating our own power. What the government does, the decisions made around where to get electricity from is I guess, in the hands of our regulators. And in terms of desalination, as I mentioned, at the moment we extract our water from the Great Artesian Basin, and that's our future pathway as well.
But I believe there has been suggestions of pumping up water from the desalinating water and pumping it up from the Spencer Gulf. Is that not a possibility?
So if you were to go back in time, back in around 2007, 2008, there was an EIS that was put out for what we called back then ODX, which included that provision, but that doesn't form part of our future plans.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
There's one up there.
This is actually more of a thank you than a question. Catherine Higley, Oregon State University. My students are currently involved in a BHP-sponsored research effort on remediation of uranium mine-impacted sites. Multiple universities are involved, and I think this is awesome, and I just wanted to say thank you very much.
Oh, great, thanks.
Thank you.